Welcome back on the Good Morning Artesia radio show, and we continue on with our governmental interview segments here, and joining us is County Commissioner Fred Beard. Good morning, Mr. Beard.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
How are things in South Eddy County?
Pretty good. I drove down here. I got to be part firefighter yesterday.
You did?
The neighbor's ranch caught on fire, and half the volunteer fire departments were out there, Happy Valley and a lot of them, so
yeah.
I was in the middle of that, even got to help change a flat tire. So
oh, wow.
That was pretty interesting.
That was exciting. One time I kind of encountered one of the volunteer fire crews. This was 30 years ago, long time ago, and there was a grass fire that had started on the lot where our tower is on the south end of town here, and it was burning across our property. And it looked like it was going to get to our building that has all our transmitter stuff in. And I asked one of the firefighters, I said, I'm paid up on insurance. Can you just let it, go ahead and... And he looked at me like, well, we're not trained to do that. And I was kidding, of course.
Well,
I wasn't being serious. Or was I? Yeah,
some people just don't have a sense of humor. So,
yeah. So no, we have really good volunteer firefighters. How much of that falls under the county? What is the county's role in working with all these different volunteer fire departments?
Well, we have some control, and we fund an awful lot of it. We buy the fire trucks. Yesterday, we had some very interesting discussion. Josh Mack was there, and Jared, and they were asking for some stuff. And we supplied it. They've got good stuff. We've got a lot of new fire trucks. Of course, that has a lot to do with oil and gas. So we can get into that at some point, too. So, where the county is in good shape. So,
yeah.
But the firefighters, these are good guys. We're working hard to bring them up to speed education-wide. We've got to follow the rules and play the game. The ISO scores, which controls the price that the residents pay for insurance, we need, with our newer equipment and some stuff we're doing in the trading, that score goes up, which means the insurance is cheaper.
Okay.
And that's one thing that's driving all of that. There's some pushback for all the new testing and all the new education processes, but that's what that's all about. So.
Yeah. So it's well, I'm glad you guys, the county, funds that, and you're right. We've got some great people in the volunteer fire industry, if you will, in Eddy County, and that's a good thing.
We do, and we've got some very new, very modern fire trucks out there.
Yeah.
We're purchasing new medical equipment to put on these trucks from and I don't know how the thing works. We'll get a description of it, but a machine that actually does CPR.
Oh, wow.
So somebody shows up by themselves, they can do that while they're doing other stuff before help arrives. So
yeah. So what does the average fire truck cost nowadays? Just out of curiosity.
I think there's a couple of them that can sneak up on the big figure, $1 million that they purchased here a while back. I probably may get in trouble on that because
no. I knew there are a lot of money.
The two new ones that I got to observe in the parking lot, which has been a few months ago, they call them tankers, and they've actually got a boom down one side. They can drive down the highway, and they can shoot a stream of water out, just water, for up to 50 plus feet. So they go right down the highway, and they can stop the highway fires. They can basically put a wet line out there to stop an oncoming blaze. They're pretty neat trucks. They're very modern with a lot of they're well configured and well stocked for what those guys do.
No, I know they're expensive, and it's not like you buy one every day.
No, a lot of that stuff's getting pretty old. So,
so you got to update it from time to time, and there'll always be this fully functional broadcast museum here. So we're always going to remember the olden days of radio technology,
the olden days.
But you can't do that on the firefighters. So before we get into the county commission stuff, I was going to ask you, the governor addressed the state yesterday. I did not get a chance to watch it. Did you watch any of what the governor said? And What do you anticipate might be coming down the line from this legislative session as it impacts, say, Eddy County?
Don't know, but it won't be good. But I did not watch the State of the State.
Yeah.
I did notice a headline on the Roswell paper out there on the table. She's pushing for tax cuts and a little more stuff on crime.
Yeah.
What's that tell you about her poll numbers?
That's true. It is an election year. 2022 is, so she's got to worry about things that most people worry about that they generally don't worry about leading up to that. So, what is the county's political observers? What have they been sharing with the county commission?
Well, it's just getting started. We did find out that I don't think anybody will be surprised to know they've already introduced 200-plus bills.
Yeah.
So there's no telling what's going to take.
And it's a 30-day session.
It's a 30-day session, and I used to think, and we were told for years that it was strictly budgetary, financial stuff. Well, now everything under the sun's in it. So just like
if the governor wants it.
If the governor wants it.
Right.
So.
Okay.
So it will be interesting to see where that goes. I don't think any of us are going to be allowed in the roundhouse. I think any one-on-one meetings are probably going to have to be outside the city limits. So, it's a fiasco.
Well, I saw something here. You might understand what this was. This was sent to me the other day. There's a gentleman. He says, I was walking through a restaurant without a mask on and almost caught COVID. Then I quickly sat down and started eating so that I was safe. Science. So I think you could have your one-on-ones. You just got to be, eating a hamburger or something, eating some nuggets or,
the science and some of that, I think even Fauci stumbled into here a while back. A mask will work if it's an N95 mask. It is properly fitted and properly sealed, and if you take it off and you touch it, you throw it in the garbage can, and you start all over with a new mask. Now, these cloth masks that people wear, and it's under their nose or under their chin, and they're always pulling and touching, and when they take it off, they put it in their pocket, and they wear it for days on end. They don't do any good. It's just...
Well, every so often I'll take mine and I'll set it up on the dash of the truck and let the sun cleanse it, bake all the bad stuff out of it. So I do that from time to time. Somebody, Woods told me to do that. That would be a good thing to do.
UV light will work on it, but if that's... But I don't know. Most everybody I know has had COVID, so
I know it's really kind of gone around, especially this particular round. But it seems like, to me, from what I've seen, most people are getting over it rather quickly. It's not as severe as some of the prior strains have been, and so people are getting, they're getting it, and they're getting over it, and they're getting back to work.
And there's a lot, and I know a lot of people, they're self-diagnosing, and they get over.
Well, that can be dangerous now.
Well, if they're not real sick, they just assume, you get what feels like a common cold, and you don't smell like you used to, or your taste buds are different. It's pretty good summation that you've got the COVID, and you're over it in a week, and you go on with it. So there's certainly some percentage.
Oh yeah.
Of that.
Well, I'm hoping that's kind of this particular phase with this particular variant, is that it's like the winter, cold winter flu thing, or that the folks go, because you hate to see people getting really sick and going in the hospital, and
there's some of that, but I think it's probably some of the older crowd. I think it's the susceptible people, but it's not all together.
So we'll get through that. What did you want to get into anything from the county commissioner? Or were there a couple of things you wanted to talk about before we got into that?
To talk about the stuff going on with the schools and the control of the schools and the CRT and how all of this is coming.
And just to kind of recap, folks, we've got the public education department basically is in control of the schools. School boards have very limited after. Yeah. Right. So you elect your school board members, and they appoint a superintendent or hire a superintendent. And you think, okay, we've got we've got to say so. And what we found in New Mexico is that that's not necessarily the case. The public education department, under the direction of the governor appointed public education secretary, is ultimately in control of things. And we've seen that affect, some school boards that tried to bucket were dismissed.
Yes.
And there's a lot of frustration on the part of educators around the state to try to be able to have some more local control. And I think the critical race theory curriculum question is going to be a huge factor in some of these upcoming elections that are going on around the country. I don't know how much it'll impact New Mexico per se, but it'll be kind of interesting. What's your observation on this?
Well, you've got to ask yourself, how did we get here from there?
Mm-hmm.
I graduated.
Bill Richardson.
Well, before that, I graduated in 1970.
Okay.
And, through the 70s, there was a lot of stuff happening.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm not mistaken, during the 70s, as far as national, global, international test scores go, whether it be math, science, or what have you, we were second to nobody in the world.
Mm-hmm.
We were on top of it. And then along comes Jimmy Carter and a Democrat-controlled Congress and Senate, and we get the Federal Department of Education. This has been going on for 2 generations. How did we get that?
Mm-hmm.
Now, has anybody read the 10th Amendment lately?
Probably not.
The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution or prohibited by it to the states are reserved to the states respectively or to the people.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty simple statement. That
Yeah.
is one of the original amendments. How did the federal government get control? Has anybody ever seen education, or for that matter, health care in the Constitution?
Right. No. I agree with you entirely. I think some people might make the case that if we're going to fund schools, maybe we should have some funding mechanism in which, if the taxpayers agree through their congressional representatives to redistribute some money for education, you'd need a federal entity to maybe do that. Some people might make an argument for that. Some people might even make an argument and say, maybe we need to look at what curriculum is like in different parts of the country and maybe adopt some minimal standards for curriculum and education. You would need a federal agency to advise the states in that area.
Yeah, but
some people might make an argument.
That would be a fair argument. And in New Mexico, what you led into this conversation with, what the governor's doing and what have you, that's what states are supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
But then you go across the state line to Texas and some other states, Florida, they're not playing that game and kicking it out, and they're being threatened with federal lawsuits and federal investigations. And
That's right.
the FBI is going to come in and do investigations on their school boards.
That's got people disgusted because the evidence that is coming out, it looks like the Brandon administration encouraged the School Board Association to write the letter requesting that the FBI investigate some of these quote-unquote radical parents.
Yes, and the Department of Justice jumped right on it very quickly.
Oh, yeah. Well, that.
But preceding this bad Supreme Court decision, about 15, 16 years, when they made God unconstitutional in the schools. There's no prayers anymore. There's exceptions. You do around the pole and what have you.
Right.
But I was hearing the other day, you can't do anything with Christianity in schools, but you can have a Satan club. That's going on in Chicago. Tucker had him on the other night, and I don't know whether you picked up on that or not, but, the guy looked like he could have been him. So.
Well, ultimately, what it comes down to, I think people on the local level, people around here, want to be in control of their school districts through the election process, electing people they know that they want to represent their interests on the school board, which they hope would be in charge of the schools. And that kind of led to, you mentioned the Federal Department of Education, which started in the late 70s.
79.
Now you've got I guess we voted for it, the constitutional amendment that changed in New Mexico to where we created this all-encompassing Department of Education with a Secretary of Education appointed by the governor, because we wanted to take the politics out of education and do it that way.
Politics? You mean appointed by the governor?
I know. Well, I mean, ultimately, if you don't like the governor, you can change out the governor, which would maybe change out the appointment of the public education director. But still, we turned over so much authority over the local school districts to this state Department of Education. And I don't know that a lot of people were really aware of the impact it was having or what impact it was having until
I was going to say
COVID.
They are now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the stuff with COVID and the control, that's totally out of control.
Yeah.
But, good things are happening. But, the same thing has happened with public energy. I always forget the acronym of that, the PRC,
Yeah.
Public Regulation Commission.
Yeah.
That used to be an elected position.
It was. That's right.
And now the governor appoints all of them. So it necessarily wasn't political. It was elected by the people, and now it's appointed by the governor.
Yeah.
And it has become very political.
Well, and I think what it concerns people there is these regulations that are coming down that are basically going to make it impossible for people to just decide, hey, I want to get a gas truck and drive it around on my property. It's going to be this commission, which was to kind of regulate utility rates and that type of thing, is kind of turned into, in my opinion, a wing of the environmentalist aspect of our current leadership. Am I kind of seeing it that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not disagreeing with that at all. Everything's about climate change, which has been changing ever since the ice bridge between Siberia and Alaska melted, so the people that settled North and South America couldn't walk across it anymore.
Yeah.
So where was man-made global warming for that?
Right.
So
right. And that's what I don't think people...
They don't want to talk about that.
No, and I think people need to recognize that, because this is going to affect, fuel standards and emissions standards.
What about tax?
Yeah.
Or how are they going to collect a large part, or forget what it is, a certain percentage of every gallon of gas that you pay is tax.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody says you can go to Texas and buy it cheaper in Texas, and you can here, and you can. It's not by a lot, but it is the difference between the state tax on gasoline here versus Texas.
Yeah. It seems like they do understand incentives and disincentives. If we raise the taxes high enough, that activity will slow down and not happen. And I think they're doing that on purpose when it comes to energy. And we're sitting out here in Southeast. You on a ranch. I mean, you drove how many miles to get to the radio station today? Quite a bit.
Over 50. Yeah.
Over 50. You were out there, helping change tires and fighting fires yesterday. Could you imagine doing that in an all-electric vehicle?
No. Now, we may get there someday, but right now, no. I like my truck.
Yeah. And I have nothing against the technology. I think it's intriguing technology. But look at the poor people that were in Virginia when the ice storm hit and they were stranded on the highway for a day or longer.
Yes, and I've got fuel tanks out there. I can keep fuel, gasoline, diesel for the equipment and back and forth to town, what have you.
Mm-hmm.
How, if they do that, are rural people going to be able to charge this kind of stuff?
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine trying to run one of those big tractors on a battery?
Well, I mean, there's probably a use for it as far as torque and power and being able to do certain things, but it's only going to work for a little while. You still got to get back to town.
Yeah, and when it does, now you can pull over to a gas tank somewhere and fill it up. I mean, how long is it going to take to charge the massive battery that it would take to do that?
Oh, you'll lay out your little solar panels and you'll
maybe put them on the roof.
Put them on the roof there, and you'll crack open your thermos and you'll have your cup of coffee and
come back tomorrow.
Back tomorrow. That's right. Well, and you see it too in the policy. The mayor of Artesia was talking about this the other day. That you've seen the biodiesel facility that Holly Frontiers built at the Navajo Refining Company, and how much money that company has invested in New Mexico. Did they go running to the state to say, we can't do this unless you help us? You know, we got to be given this. And I'm not saying that there's not a reason. You probably see it at the county level, different entities that come that look for some kind of assistance to get projects going and get projects on their feet. But is there anything that is more economically positively impactful than a project like what we've seen the last few months going up in Artesia?
The construction may be. Now, they're building a big solar panel down south of me near Texas to big solar panel. Chevron is to operate a gas plant, basically.
Okay.
And they're going to spend a lot of money on that. But what I go back to on that, every kilowatt hour produced by gas and oil and coal or nuclear pays tax into some coffer somewhere. Every kilowatt hour produced by solar or wind, and I may be wrong on this, and I'll sure hear back from it if I am, they are subsidized by tax dollars.
Okay.
So, you know, that's just a simple matter of fact, unless I've missed something.
But Commissioner Beard, we're saving the environment.
Yeah.
You know,
and what do you do with those old blades? What do you know? What the chemicals?
You don't ask those
chemicals
questions
that have got to be manufactured to build his stuff with.
No, we don't talk about that.
No, we don't.
You know, what's going to happen here in 10, 15 years when the battery packs in the cars and the trucks that the people have been buying now for a few years are worn out. They're no longer in good enough condition to be rebuilt or redone. Well, I guess we're told they'll be recycled.
I'm not sure how they do that. I'm not sure they've thought that through. What I've heard on it is that stuff's tough to deal with. And,
that's right.
And to manufacture the mining process, well, you go back to China, pretty well controls all of it right now because they're the only ones that have got the rare earths to build this.
Yeah.
And if we wanted to mine it here, you couldn't get past the environmental crowd to get the permit to open the mine to mine that stuff.
Oh no, that is definitely an issue. I think Elon's working on getting some of his stuff domestically, or at least in different countries.
He's kind of getting to be my new hero. So.
In some ways, and in some ways, he's still crazy. He's still interesting.
He's wealthy crazy.
That's Don't we wish we could be that someday? Hey, we are going to take a quick break. We have County Commissioner Fred Beard with us, and we're going to chat more about what's happening around. Don't go away.